Ladies and gentlemen, there was a big smackdown that happened today at the White House with the Ukrainian President Zelensky visiting Trump. They were going to sign some things in relation to the agreed upon minerals deal, where Trump said he would keep funding Ukraine as long as the U.S. got something in return. It went completely off the rails. Trump kicked Zelensky out of the White House. They were supposed to have lunch together. They were going to talk about the minerals deal. And it doesn't look like any of that happened. They were discussing things, and Zelensky, it seemed like Trump wanted an agreement from Zelensky to end the war, and Zelensky wants some type of assurance from the United States in terms of protection, possibly Trump not wanting to give him that. J.D. Vance gets involved. It's crazy. And it starts out with Trump just completely mogging Zelensky. I mean, this is crazy when you look at the height difference, and Zelensky, we know he doesn't wear suits, but like Trump is treating him like a child. Wow, look, you're all dressed up today. That's the first thing that Trump says to Zelensky for their meeting. It is crazy. Let's take a look at this.
Pretty close. How are you? Pretty shut.
He's all dressed up today.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir?
Just look at Zelensky, man.
Dressed up today.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir Putin, sir? President Trump.
So that's how it started, and then there's a lot of stuff. I think I'm going to go to the main highlights is what we're going to go to. This was like the full 7.5 minute big video of Trump and Zelensky. I guess we'll just play this or play parts of it.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Trump's being a leader.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Zelensky, here he talks about an agreement that he had with a lot of the European countries and Russia. It was a ceasefire agreement back in 2019 to leave or to stop the Donbass wars. This is after Crimea was annexed, but Zelensky tries to insinuate that, oh, you're going to make it a deal with Putin here. Well, Putin's just going to reinvade. That's basically what Zelensky is saying in this. I don't want to play the entire thing because it is 7 minutes, but this is where it gets pretty crazy. Yeah, this 2-minute clip right here.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
I'm not
you're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
you're not
Mr.
in a good position. You don't have the
the
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you don't.
Very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
They're treating him like a child. J.D. Vance says, have you said thank you once? That's what you tell your 6-year-old kid. And so throughout that entire thing, again, I think the overarching point here is that Zelensky is saying that, oh, Putin, if we do some type of peace deal, is just going to reinvade, insinuating that he doesn't want to do a peace deal right now. The dynamic here, and Trump is correct, Zelensky has no leverage. The United States is funding a heavy portion of this war. We are in control of what NATO does. If Europe wants to do something different, they would have to really step up their defense spending. So this could be negotiations by Zelensky and Trump was obviously not happy with this and the way it went down. And I'm not even kidding you. Trump kicked him out. Let's see what this is. Trump kicked him out of the White House.
I hope I'm going to be remembered as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing if we could do this. I'm doing this to save lives more than anything else. Second is to save a lot of money, but I consider that to be far less important. So I hope I'm going to thank you, Brian, for that question. It was a nice question. I hope I'll be known and recognized as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing to solve. This is a very dangerous situation. You know, this could lead to a third world war. This was headed in the wrong direction. If this election were lost, if we didn't win this election, and by the way, we won it by a lot. That was a mandate. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. We won everything. The districts, you look at the areas of red, take a look at a map. This was a big mandate, and this was one of the things. I said, we're going to get this thing settled. If we didn't win, I think this could have very well ended up.
Yeah, so that was before the whole smackdown happened where Trump was talking about potentially ending it, and I'm not even sure we got to the minerals deal here, just by the way that this went off the rails with Zelensky insinuating that the war is not going to be over if you do reach a peace settlement with Putin. And this really comes down to the opinion of Putin. Obviously, Zelensky hates Putin. Trump is trying to have a decent relationship with him. So there's going to be some alienization when it comes to that. But wow, what a smackdown that was. And we'll have to see. You can see what happened here. Let me move this up. Zelensky is leaving the White House and the press conference has been canceled. Trump tells Zelensky to come back when he's ready for peace. Look at this.
We see the SUV,
hang on with us
Zelensky's
one moment.
SUV.
If you look to your left, you're going to see him.
Zelensky gets thrown out of the White House.
Is the deal off?
Is the minerals deal off?
What happened?
Zelensky wants, it seems like from Trump's perspective, to either continue the war or the thought was that he wants assurances and military protections from the United States, which is an issue in and of itself. The Republican viewpoint is we don't want to be put in the same situation that that we've been the past 3 years to where we're funding this war in Eastern Europe. So the idea that we would give them protections, while at the same time, if there is a mineral deal, you would think for Ukraine, there would be a vested interest for the United States to have some protection over Ukraine. But it is a little bit more complicated because a lot of the rare earths that are in Ukraine are controlled by Russia right now because they're in the eastern territories, the eastern regions that have been taken over by the Russians. And that's why there might be an economic deal with Putin and Trump to extract some of those because it's trillions of dollars of rare earths there. President Trump kicks Zelensky out of the White House and cancels the press conference after a heated argument. Zelensky is not ready for peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without the conversation under such fire and pressure. And it's good. Let's have the public conversation. We like this. I mean, this is very, very entertaining. I thought the first part where Trump he treated him like he's like, you're dressed up today. I thought that was going to be the big story. That's like the sideshow. They have this argument, and you see Zelensky like being shuffled out and out of the White House. I mean, this is crazy. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America. So Trump is, well, I mean, that is true. That's why they're doing the minerals deal, because Zelensky and Ukraine understand that if they have the United States still funding them, they'll have more leverage during negotiations. So Trump is right. I guess Trump doesn't like that, but that's the whole idea. If you are a Ukrainian, you would still want, even though all that's happened and a lot of people in Europe don't like Trump, whatever, the Ukrainians still want Trump on their side. They'll give him minerals, they'll give him resources from their country because they understand the idea of leverage during negotiations. And Trump is saying that he doesn't want that involved in the negotiation process. That seems a little bit, I mean, you have to understand that's what Ukraine was doing. That's why they were giving the United States the minerals. And by the way, it's a good thing for Trump. I mean, we'll take it. We weren't going to get any of that under Democrats. They would never do that. That's like, see, the mineral deal is a great example. And you could say, well, it ties the United States to the region, whatever. Well, we're also possibly going to be tied to Russia through an economic agreement with minerals in eastern Ukraine as well. But the idea is you're able to extract something using the power, its proxy power of the United States, to where Trump understands Ukraine is desperate and they need the United States support, so you can extract things from them for the continued support, rather than what liberals would do, which is nothing. They would just give them the support because it's the right thing to do, which obviously, in terms of it being the right thing to do, there's a lot more nuanced when it comes to foreign conflicts. You just don't give everything up if you're the richest country in the world because you want to be nice. That's how you get taken advantage of, like liberals have been the past 4 years. So there's more nuance to the situation, but it seems like, I guess, Trump is not happy that Zelensky possibly is trying to use the United States in a way for negotiating leverage when negotiating with Russia. And also, from what I saw and what Zelensky was saying, is he's basically saying that if there is, and I'm not even sure what he's insinuating here, but does he want the war to continue? Because he's saying when we had a ceasefire in 2019, a ceasefire agreement it was signed with Russia, there was fighting in eastern Ukraine, Putin just reinvaded in 2022. That's right, so we understand that, but so you want to just continue fighting, and then how does this end exactly? You're losing men. NATO troops are not going to be involved in this. There's going to be no escalation. So this has to end in some way. But this was a really, really bad situation. Here's a little nice moment. I mean, this is the same thing. I do like your closing. And look at Zelensky. Just watch Zelensky's body language, his face. He is not comfortable. He thinks Trump is being sarcastic here. And he did not have a good time at the White House.
I do like your clothing, but
Yeah, really?
even I think he's a great guy, by the way. But I don't know if you two like each other, but you know what? I think he's dressed. I think he's dressed
I like
beautifully.
this guy. I don't know
I think
him.
he's dressed beautifully.
So-
I do like.
I think Trump is talking about J.D. Vance and Zelensky. Yeah, J.D. Vance, it was a good cop, bad cop routine. Trump came in there, tried to be peaceful. Vance hit Zelensky hard. Zelensky responded. And then Zelensky made the threat of, you will feel the idea is, and this is what the European countries say, especially Ukraine. They say, well, Putin's not stopping with Ukraine. Once Putin starts taking over other countries in Europe, it's going to become an American problem. And so that's also why Zelensky said, well, you're lucky, you have the ocean in between. And honestly, that's a very important aspect of it. Yes, we're in a different area. That's why he really should be asking for more money from the European countries, because they're landlocked for the most part with Russia. But Trump got involved and smacked Zelensky down when Zelensky insinuated that the United States was going to have a problem with Russia basically by being passive, and their idea is, oh, Putin's going to start taking over other countries in Europe, and then it's going to be a U.S. problem. And Trump said, you don't know that, you don't know that. That's when Trump started to get a little bit more hostile towards Zelensky. So it's interesting dynamics for sure. Whether or not this changes things with the minerals deal, I didn't even hear, like, I thought we were going to learn some detail. I was happy. I was like excited because I thought we're going to get details. Maybe it's like 300 million. He was like maybe over $1 trillion in resources, but we were going to learn how this was all going to be facilitated with Ukraine when it comes to the level of security that would be needed. I don't think Trump wanted to really give them much. Possibly the European countries give Ukraine more security, but there's also going to be a deal facilitated with Russia. That's why I said for Ukraine, it's good that the United States have an economic agreement with Russia, because then Russia will play more nice. And we know Trump and Putin, back from 2017 to 2021, there was no crazy invasion. I mean, they were still fighting in eastern Ukraine, but there was not an invasion to the level that we saw in 2022 under Biden. And if there is an agreement, you would think that would deter Russia from an invasion. And also there would also be other things, other stipulations in a peace negotiation that the United States would push to make it to where Russia would not be able to do a reinvasion, and that would not be something that would be on the table. But Zelensky was saying, well, we signed a ceasefire in 2019 and then they just reinvaded in 2022. But what do you want us to do about that? The only way to really deter Russia involves a risk of escalation. Well, it's not even a risk, it will be escalation, which is something that Trump pledged and won every single swing state on not doing. And listen, I understand Ukraine, they've had their own issues. They did, and you don't want to blame the victim, but in 2014, they did try and get in bed with NATO, and it's a big problem for Russia. And it was kind of like this buffer state, and it's been an issue for a while now. But we'll have to see what ends up happening when it comes to the negotiations and where they're at this stage. But that was not a great development. I mean, who knows? I just don't know the leverage that Ukraine has in terms of continuing this war anyways. You'd think everyone could play nice, and I think this will all be worked out, honestly, just because it's like, so what is it going to continue? They're losing men. Europe, are they really going to support this for the long haul if the United States bows out in terms of giving Ukraine more money? I mean, this minerals deal has to happen for the United States to continue to give Ukraine money. That's the only way that the U.S. would fund Ukraine, is if the minerals deal happens. They were going to sign it today. Maybe it still happens. But, I mean, when you've got Trump kicking Zelensky out of the White House, you've got something I certainly did not expect. And listen, this is just what happens with situations like this, where you've got Trump coming from an American perspective. And really, this was a good cop, bad cop routine with Trump and Vance. Trump only got angry when Zelensky insinuated that the United States was going to feel the wrath of Russia because Russia was going to take over the European countries, and you don't feel it now, but you're going to feel it in the future. And then Trump says, don't tell me that. So Trump only got angry when Zelensky escalated the conversation. It was really between Zelensky and Vance, and then Trump gets involved. Vance was the bad cop coming in saying, look, we're trying to end this war. You need to be grateful. You're talking about some agreement in 2019. What do you want us to do? We can't escalate it any further. Are you insinuating we escalate the war? I'm not sure what you want. And so this all could be for negotiation. Then Trump makes the tweet and says, we're not interested in being used almost like a pawn, although that's really not how it would work. That's not a good example by me. But it is kind of a situation to where Ukraine is giving these minerals because they want the United States still funding them when they're negotiating peace, because they would have more leverage and more demands in a peace deal because they would have U.S. backing and NATO backing. So we'll have to see what happens when it comes to this settlement. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.